What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Diesel Creek. My name's Matt. Behind me, this stripped down behemoth of a truck is my 1980 Autocar Constructor. Now, if you've not seen the previous videos on this unit, basically the gist of the story is we are going to be stripping this thing down, going through everything, fixing it. It's going to get some fresh paint. It's going to get an overhauled, higher horsepower engine. And I'm doing all that so that I have a reliable way to haul around some of my bigger, heavy equipment. So this is going to pull a lowboy trailer. Now, I've gone a lot more in-depth on the whole project in some previous videos, so if you'd want to take a look at those, I'll leave a link down in the description there. But we got a lot of work left to do on this beauty. As I've mentioned in a previous video, all these tires need to be replaced, but we can't just replace the tires. We have to get new rims as well. These are what's called 10-120s, and they're not exactly easy to come by these days. I am going to switch these over to 11R 22.5s, which are a lot easier to find. I actually have 12R 22.5s on the front, and I might go the same route in the rear. I haven't figured all that out yet. The first thing I want to do today is take all these wheels and tires off of here, get them out of here, so we can have better access to the suspension and everything under the truck, because I've got to do some work underneath of there. If you can see the oil staining coming down off of this front differential, there is a pretty good leak out of that input seal. The same thing with the output seal out of the back of that differential and the input seal onto the next rear end. Getting down in there is not exactly a good time. So another thing I want to look into as well is I was playing around with the tape measure here, and we got about 4 1/4, let's say, to that edge of the tire. On the opposite side of the truck, we are sitting a lot closer to 5.5 inches, 5 1/4 inches, something like that. So if that's the case, and we do have some worn bushings down there, now is the time to replace them while we have the whole truck ripped apart. Might as well. So after the wheels and tires are off, we're going to look into that, check all that out, and if we need to, we'll get some parts ordered up and start diving into that. This is the motor and transmission setup that we removed in the previous video. It's in my way currently, so we got to pick it up and move it somewhere. But I don't want to take it out of the shop just yet, because when I start to reassemble the new engine for this truck, we're going to need probably to rob some parts off of this one and use them on the new engine. The transmission that originally was in the truck here is a TO955 DLL, and I don't know if any of you guys have ever driven that transmission before, but it's unique to say the least, and not really well suited for our application. So I have a 13-speed to put behind the new engine, and I think that's going to work out a lot better for us. So in addition to playing with the rear ends, changing input seals, and perhaps bushings, we're going to need to get into the cab here and start stripping out stuff like this junk seat. I have a much nicer air ride seat that we're going to put into the truck. Basically, before I worry about putting anything back in though, we are going to go through the whole truck and get everything prepped out for paint. Everything that doesn't need to be on there, like the mirrors, the power steering reservoir, this oil filter is not going to be here for the new engine. The filter is actually on the block, so that can get removed entirely. Cab lights, air horn, air filter over here on this side of the cab, exhaust stack, all that and then some has got to get stripped off of there. And once everything's stripped down and all the mechanical work is complete on this chassis, we're going to roll it back outside, and we are going to have to do some serious steam cleaning in here. You guys see all that mud and debris and grease and grime and grit built up on the frame rails? This truck operated in a strip mine for its entire life by the Consol Energy Company, and all the miles that it ever saw were most likely all off-road. So there is just mud caked into every little place that you would never imagine mud could even get to. One of the other things I'd like to get done to this truck before the paint prep is this rear frame. If you look at a lot of tractor trailers that pull lowboys frequently, they don't have a squared off frame like this. A lot of times they're chopped, and they have a kind of a radius frame that comes up, and that just helps you get underneath a low hanging trailer. So that's something I would like to do to this truck as well. I already cut this frame once last year, or well, maybe 2 years ago now, but not real thrilled with the way it looks, the way it sits, or anything like that. I think it will be much better if we put that nice little radius on there. In for a penny, in for a pound. So once the truck's all pressure washed up and completely cleaned off, then we can start thinking about getting it ready for paint prep. And man, that's a laundry list of stuff to get done. I don't think it's going to get done in this video. Enough chit chat, let's dive into this thing. I don't know that our little forklift is really going to have the gusto to lift this rear end of the truck up, but we're going to try. I was wrong. Sitting in the seat of the forklift, it doesn't seem like they were up off the ground, but they are. Perfect. Only I had an overhead crane. Whoever last put these wheel studs in here did not do a proper job. That was only holding on by 3 threads. I'm glad we're going over these. Oh man, there's a bunch of these studs like that. I just realized too, we shouldn't be able to spin the wheel right now. The brakes should be completely logged on. Now we have to tear this apart and see why the brakes aren't holding. I think this whole project's going to turn into this. We're going to keep digging deeper, we're going to keep finding more issues, but better to tackle them now than on the side of the road. Who knows how long it's been since the last time these tires were off of here. These are old tires. They got a lot of tread on them, but that's because this truck didn't see a lot of mileage. It's a shame to even get rid of them because there's so much tread. And I like the tread pattern. That's a neat old school open shoulder aggressive tread, but the fact is they're just dry rotted and they're not going to hold up to road service very well at this point. Well, that's one. 3 more to go. All right, we got all those wheels and tires off of there, and that opens up a whole lot more room to give the suspension a thorough inspection, as well as get in here, knock off that drive yoke, and replace those seals. In case you're wondering, that's what 1,450 pounds of tires looks like. Kind of playing around with the scale on the new forklift. 1,455, and that thing's pretty darn accurate, I'd say, too, because I weighed one tire individually, and it was 180, so times 8, and then you got to figure we got a little bit of pallet wood there, plus I have a strap running down through the center, so there's a piece of pipe the strap's looped around, run down through, and anchored off to the main center on the pallet there, so keep that tower of tires a little more stable. So yeah, I'd say that scale's pretty darn accurate, and originally when I first brought this one in here into the shop, the numbers were jumping all around, and I think it just had water in either the readout or the load cell down there on the fork carriage. But now that it's been in here for a week or two, it seems like it's dried out and it's working a lot better. It's been holding rock steady on that number for an hour now. I'm pretty excited about that. It's a shame. These tires, some of them are in poor shape, but most of them are in pretty darn good shape, except for just a little bit of dry rot. They got some cracking going on, otherwise we could still run them. Hopefully some farmer can use them on a farm truck, you know, grain truck or something like that. So I'm gonna throw them on Marketplace and try to get rid of those. I did find a couple other issues here. This axle seal, I knew it was bad. You can see how greasy that whole assembly is, so we'll have to take that apart and get it all cleaned up good. The other thing I noticed was this right here. I don't know if you guys can tell. The spring can right here should be square to this shaft. The bracket that it's mounted on there is bent that direction, and it looks like the weld is cracked all the way down around and underneath here. So I'm going to grab a chain binder, and we're going to hook from the hub here onto the bottom of that bracket and pull it back in nice and square. Of course, I keep just finding more and more work for myself here too. They put these remote grease lines on this truck, which are nice. You know, they've got these little lines that run all inside the frame rails, and they run down to all the hard to find and hard to reach grease fittings, which is great. But it was a mine. They weren't really concerned with aesthetics at all. They were just going for functionality. So they just grabbed a big piece of 1/8-inch plate here, it looks like. We don't need to have this whole big plate on here, so I want to kind of shrink this thing up into the smallest piece that we need, not only for aesthetics. It also creates a place for rust to gather in behind there. You know, lots of dirt builds up in there and creates rusting issues. We want to avoid that. We'll cut those things down to a more manageable size at some point. Oh, that looks perfect. Just clean this up, put a nice little weld bead around there. Looks like the factory weld had just a slight bit of undercut in it anyways. That's like cheat, you go downhill. Yeah, it looks good when you turn the light off. I got the camera lens. Can you guys see the fuzzy spot? Dang it. Okay, well, got that welded. It's in place. It's not going anywhere. I feel good about that. That's one thing off the list. Let's keep on working here. It's time to commit. I got to get underneath here. I got to knock these drive lines apart, and we got to change these seals out. Not a lot of room for a fella under here. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to show it to you guys. Maybe you can see it. There's back and forth slop in that spline because this is a slip shaft here. That way when your suspension is moving up and down, this drive shaft can lengthen and shorten on the run. But we also have, that doesn't seem good to me. I don't think it's supposed to be able to do that. We got to remove this thing anyway, so once it's out we can inspect that thing better. But to remove these drive shaft yokes, it's not like your little car with some little clips in there and you can just knock it apart with a hammer. There's two little, what are these, 5/16 or 3/8 bolts that hold these U-joint caps on, and they're retained by these bent over metal locking tabs. So we got to bend those down, pull out the bolts, and then a lot of people just torch the U-joints out of these because they're so hard to get out. But I picked up a tool, seems to work pretty good. I already did the front drive shaft without you guys. Yeah, let's give her a go back here and see how it works. So I used this thing on one complete U-joint now, and what I found is that you just need to take your time and make sure it's all centered right before you go hammering on things, and it works a lot better. Yeah, see how it went cattywampus there? That's not what we're looking for. All right, anyway, we got all the bolts out of those caps, so we'll try it. Yeah. I don't know if you guys could tell what happened there. It drove that cap out of the back side. Worked pretty darn well. It can only take it so far because the U-joint runs into the side of the yoke. So you just got to tap it out the rest of the way. There we go. That's one down, 8 more to go. The biggest hang up here is the limit of space where we're working. It would really be best if I caged all the brakes and then I could spin the drive line. It would make life a little easier. Heck yeah. The only other ways to get these things out of here is with a sledgehammer and do the same thing, just beat on the drive shaft and knock it over like that, or torch them out of there. Neither are very pleasant. Oh, I just now realized that the whole top of that cap blew off. So we're actually not pushing on the lid of the cap, we're pushing on the shoulder, which is not really ideal. Ugh. That cap is so hard I can't really get a bite on it, these just keep slipping. Well, this sucks. Never had this happen. I think even though that cap's not out, we might still be able to snake this thing out of here. There we go. Woo! Hey! Oh, that sucked, but it's over. Should be able to knock what's left of this cap out of here now. That's all it took. Didn't see that coming. I thought I was just pulling out a seal ring here. I don't want to do that. Well, I've wedged myself in here with the seal. And I'm currently becoming one with the seal. And I'm going to try to find a seal number and verify that I have the correct ones over on my workbench there. Might have got lucky right there. We got it. There we go. Finally got one off of there. Those suckers are tight in that wedge. Finally we can knock this axle out of here, and when I do, it's probably going to drain some oil out, so we better get a pan. So there you go. That's your axle shaft. Alright, I think I lost my audio there for a second. Basically all we had to do there was take that nut off. We had to take those nuts off that retain your hub and everything, and put the preload on your bearing. Basically there's just 2 nuts and a locking ring. They all engage with the shaft and each other. Now it's time to pull off that hub with the drum, and that sucker is heavy. So I'm going to fire up the forklift and yank it off there. Well, even though the brakes aren't applied, it seems like they are still holding, so I'm going to have to back off the slack adjuster. But I don't know that that's going to do anything. If the S-cam is busted in this hub like I think it is, I don't think that's really going to work. Some of you guys will remember the new forklift here has a scale on it, so I can see exactly how much this hub and brake drum weigh together. I want you guys to pause the video, drop a comment down below, and let me know how much you think this big old thing weighs. Oh, I was right. There's a lovely, lovely mouse nest inside of here. Can you guys see that? Well, I think we better fire up the old parts washer and get it heating up. We're gonna get this thing cleaned up because there is tons and tons of crud in here. All right, having a look inside at our brake assembly here. That guy right there is your S-cam. And the way that works, when you apply the brakes, this spring can shoves a rod out, which actuates this through shaft that comes out here to your S-cam, and then this guy should rotate this direction, and that rides on these rollers on the shoes here, which spread the pads up against the drum. And I can just tell by looking at the S-cam here and the dirt that's on it, that S-cam has not turned in quite a while. And if we cage the brake, we should see that S-cam turn, but you can watch and nothing happens. No movement at all. Try to put a bar on our, well, I guess the shaft is okay. I think we have an issue in our spring can. Maybe the park brake spring is busted. This is a super old, antiquated design of spring can with a built-in cage bolt that cannot be removed. I've never even seen those kind before except for on this truck, so wouldn't hurt to replace them anyways. In for a penny, in for a pound. I think the best bet might be to just pop all these spring cans off and put 4 new ones on here so we don't have to worry about it. Also, that is all greasy dust. So what that means is there's a good chance that this axle seal in the back of the hub here was leaking. We're gonna go ahead and replace that too while we're in here. The bearings look good from what I've seen though, but we're gonna check those up real good too before we put it back together. Well, you've had time to leave your comments. What do you think that hub weighs? Drum roll, please. 220 pounds. It's actually a little bit lighter than I thought it was. I thought that thing was gonna be pushing 300. All right, we got our hub assembly in the parts washer. We'll fire this thing up. See it come out nice and clean. This one is a greasy disaster. I got a lot of flack last time that we did a wheel seal for just cleaning up the pads and running them again. So they are pretty cheap. I'm gonna go ahead and probably get us a new set for this side. This thing is caked nasty. Look at that. It's like a ½ inch worth of junk in there. I'm glad we have that parts washer. That'll make quick work of this. I had to clean the last one I did up by hand. It was a mess. All right, this thing just shut down. Let's see how good she came out. Look at this. The scum tray down here was completely empty when we started. Look how full it is. It's just overflowing. I'm gonna dump that out. Alright, I only ran it for 10 minutes and it came pretty clean, but we still got some junk in there, so I flipped it over so the jets can hit it from another direction and we'll give her another go. Alright, we got hub number 2 in the parts washer. This is really going to be the test. This thing is nasty. Let's see what she'll do. That one was a fight. Those brakes were really tight on that one. Oh, we're missing the pan. Pig mat. All right, well, that's the last one. Yeah, that's another one that the seal was about to start being catastrophically leaking, but hadn't yet. Or maybe it was just so much dirt built up around it that it wasn't letting it leak. Kind of created a dirt seal. What a mess. I think this brake shoe slid off while we were taking things apart here. I don't think it was like that. Anyway, we'll get them all cleaned up. Still running these hubs through the parts washer. We'll get everything cleaned up and service what we need to service, and then put it all back together with nice new stuff. It's not as bad as that one, but pretty nasty in there. So it's a good thing we got in here, take these all apart, get all that dirt out of there and everything. I think this truck saw a lot of mud bogging going on in its life. So there is just buildup of mud and crud in places that you wouldn't normally find it. I mean, the back side of the spoke hub is what you're seeing there, like in there, and it is just packed with crud. I don't think that's super normal to see when you take these off of there. So it's a good thing we did this. We're gonna get those all cleaned out, and I'm actually gonna pressure wash all the brake assemblies off so that we can get those nice and clean. Parts washer was still running when I left last night on this really, really greasy guy. I let it go for about 40 minutes or so because it was so heavily caked and crusted. What's it look like now? Oh, spotless. The first time I did one of these wheel seals, like last year, I did it on video, and I cleaned up, you know, as gunky as this was, I cleaned up one pretty much identical with nothing but a scraper and a wire brush and some brake clean. And let me tell you, this is the way to go. That sucked when I did it the other time. Yeah, everything looks good here. We can put this aside for reassembly. I've never done a set of semi shoes before yet. Here we are, killing it. All right, well, the next thing I'm going to do while I'm waiting on seals and other parts here is I'm going to dock this frame back here. Basically, you kind of ramp the back frame rails here, and this helps you get underneath low trailers, or can give you some more teeter angle if you go over like a sharp knob or something. It would give you more of an angle that the trailer could bend before you would contact the frame rails of the truck. All right, we got the frame rails notched. Now this cross member is also going to have to be cut away and repositioned. Alright, so I just cut that angle off of the piece we cut off the cross member. I got it tacked in there for right now. I must have gotten off 1 or 2 degrees from side to side on my cut here because things are not quite even. But it really won't matter because what I plan on doing is taking a piece of 2 or 3 inch wide flat bar and wrapping it from here all the way up and over, giving you some nice solid places for trailers to ride up on. The other thing you need the support in here for is a good place for a neck support for a low boy to come down and rest on the frame there and support the neck while you have it detached. I think we ran out of welding gas. Dang it. All right, so my plans are to do a redesign of this catwalk area for behind the fifth wheel. So I want to start by torching off this old stuff and getting ready for the new stuff. Man, I am impressed with my own torch work until I get down there. To get that corner cut, I made a little bit of a mess, but you won't see that once we have the catwalk on here anyway, so not really that important. But the part you will see, did a great job on that. Well, we got all that junk and excess material cut off there and cleaned up, looking good. Turning our attention back here to our frame chop that we had to stop because the MIG welder ran out of shielding gas. I just busted out the old engine drive Lincoln stick welder, and I'm going to try to finish buzzing this thing up, and this should be interesting because I haven't stick welded anything in, well, I think over a year, so what could go wrong? Just like Grandma used to say, grinder and paint makes me the welder I ain't. Boy, am I glad that's over with. As usual, everything takes way longer than I ever anticipate, but I went over this with the Tiger paw and got all the sharp edges and burrs and everything knocked off. This side over here turned out pretty good. This was 60-11 was all I had, 1/8 inch 60-11. So it'll never look as good as 70-18 or anything, but man, I'm pretty happy for not having stick welded in I think over a year. It's just like riding a bike, it'll come back to you. Well, I was really planning on getting more accomplished in this video, but like always, everything takes longer than I anticipate, first of all, and then second of all, finding more issues as we get into it and correcting those takes extra time. So I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up here since I think we're getting pretty long. All I have to do in the next video now is slap the seals back in the drive line and reassemble that. I think I decided I want to pull off the fifth wheel plate. I kind of did a hack job on these brackets that actually hold on the slider plate. That was back before I had a mag drill or anything, and the idea of trying to drill those big heavy plates with a hand drill just boggled my mind, and there was no way I was going to break my wrist trying. So I tried with a torch, and I'm not the best at freehanding holes out with a torch, so I want to get some new brackets for that. I would feel better about that. So I'll pull the fifth wheel plate off before paint anyhow, and then when we slap it all back together, I'll do it with brand new brackets, and that will bolt back on there. I still want to knock off this cross member and drive line setup that used to run the winch. We're going to abandon that and go hydraulic on this winch. That ultimately gives me better control of the winch and will save me a little bit of weight with all that drive line crap deleted. So all that and more in the next video. I appreciate you guys' patience with the Autocar series. This is a major project and I cannot devote 100% of my time to it. I've got lots of other stuff going on in the background out there. So I appreciate the patience. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you on the next video. Oh, by the way, if you guys would like to help support the channel, head on over to dieselcreek.com. We've got a new t-shirt in the store now, so if you haven't got one of those yet, pick yourself up a fresh new t-shirt for the spring. Maybe if your hat's getting a little grungy, pick up a new hat. I sure would appreciate it if you did. Anyways, guys, that's all I got for today, so thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next video. Later.